Welcome to Feminine Roadmap Podcast. I'm your host, Gina-r-Farrar. Each week, I bring you an inspiring conversation to help you navigate the challenges and changes of midlife so that you can not only survive, but thrive in your second half. Hello, Feminine Roadmappers. It is Gina here. And today we are going to be talking about connection and community as women in this interesting season of life as we're transitioning from the first half to the best half. And so my guest today is Susie Levan. She is the author of Getting to Forgiveness, What a Near-Death Experience Can Teach Us About Loss, Resilience, and Love. She's a spiritual warrior and she's a coach. And as a result of her coaching, she created this extension called a Women's Wisdom Circle. And that's what's prompting our conversation today about connection and community. So, Susie, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hey, Gina. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
It's my pleasure. And of course, you are also on my YouTube currently. I will be putting that link below where Susie shares her harrowing story of being kidnapped in a near-death experience. So if you want to know more about that side of Susie's story, please head to the show notes and click on that YouTube link. But today, what we're going to be talking about is the impact that she has had on women in the second half of their life in helping women with community and connection. So, Susie, why don't you tell us a little bit about your Women's Wisdom Circle, what it was and why you created it?
Well, it's interesting, Gina. What happened for me was that part of my group of ladies that I was coaching as well as counseling in my office, after their time frame had ended, would say to me, I'm really looking for a group. Do you know about a group that women are meeting together with? And I really, at the time, there really weren't a whole lot of groups available. So I read somewhere, behind every successful woman is a tribe of women who have her back. And that kind of like a little light bulb went off in my head. And so I said, well, there aren't any groups, but I'm going to create a group. And because you've been part of my coaching or counseling, I created what I now call, and has been called for 20 plus years, the Women's Wisdom Circle. Now, this was in 1998, and having been called to do this, it was all about calling together women from all walks of life, different professions, different levels of where they were professionally, emotionally, spiritually, with children, with grandchildren, it didn't matter. But we were in a range of about 45 to 65, which I could relate to as well. So it was a nice mixture. You know, I'm always quoting things. And the other thing I remember having heard a long time ago was that if we change the chairs, we can change the world. And so to me, the circle, if you will, was changing the chairs, because all of us were equals in the circle. It didn't matter if you were a lawyer, a doctor, or a waitress. We were all women dealing with different issues. And we really were very powerful in the conversations, because what I did was connect women that were feeling disconnected. And in those early 90s, believe it or not, there was still a lot of fear between women not sharing lots of their own experiences or helping and supporting other women. And so this really became not just a support vehicle, but where we could discuss confidentially and honestly and from a place of experience, because I had some really set rules that women had to follow. You couldn't just show up and come and go. You had to commit for the year. I charged money to come, because I always felt that there was an energetic exchange, because if there was money involved, you would show up, and we would meet from 7 to 9 o'clock at night. And in those days, we met every Thursday night. We now only meet every other Tuesday, but in those days, we actually met every Thursday night. And, you know, the word circle and community, if you think about it, gathering in a circle setting has been around for thousands of years. And in fact, our ancestors would sit around a fire, and they would share stories, and they would listen to their elders and have experiences of what happened in the stories. And they would, obviously, the fire would bring warmth, and they would cook their food. And so the circle has always been a very powerful way to set the stage. And people, I think, are very comfortable in that. It's in their DNA, or it's in our DNA, that circle concept. So I think that started in a very non-threatening, easy conversation concept. And also the shape of the circle. It has no beginning, it has no end, right? And so back to hierarchy, just because I created the circle doesn't mean that I'm the only one running it. We had lots of different people, picking it up and doing what needed to be done. When I was in Sedona a million years ago, I picked up this beautiful talking stick, and it was very colorful, and it was not very big. It was probably about 18 inches long. And so we would pass it around the circle, and people would say, okay, I have something to say. And we would pass the talking stick to them. And it was very interesting to see what was coming up. But, basically what the circle was created for was to create a safe, non-judgmental space for women to belong with courage and acceptance of each other without drama, honestly, with allowing also a conversation to understand each other's lives and how each of us can influence each other in positive ways. Sometimes at the beginning, what I do in my wisdom circle, I share a quote to start the energy, to create a moment of thought. People will bring a pad and a pen, and they write down, what their thoughts are after they've read the quote. And then we literally share conversation relating to the quote and what it means to them. I also have angel cards. And those angel cards, which I've had for many, 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 many years, are passed around. Each person energizes the deck and pulls out a card and sits on the card. They're not allowed to look at the card until the end. And people love that because the messages that they receive from these angel cards are very powerful. And as part of the group, of course, being a teacher of meditation, one of the things we do at the end of our 2 hours after speaking and so forth is we meditate for about 25 minutes at the end. Now, these are people that have never meditated in the past and now have become expert meditators, and they love it. And so they look forward to having that time to really release and connect and ground themselves, right? With what I call my tribe, my goddesses, this energetic presence that we are now surrounded with. And, what's happened over the years is what I've learned is that we are a product of the 5 people that we surround ourselves with. I'm sure you've heard that before. We tend to read the same books. We'll go to the same movies. We eat the same things. We even look alike. In some cases, we buy the same outfits because we'll go shopping together, right? And so I say to people, so pay attention to the 5 people that I have 20 plus people as part of my circle. So all of these women are at different points in their lives. And so we get to learn from each and every one of them. And lots of clarity shows up for everyone, because what happens is sometimes we walk into the room and we are in deep confusion. And the group has actually created profound effects and impacts on each and every one of us. And even though I am the host and the facilitator, I sit back because I realize how much I am receiving. I'm not just doing all the talking. It is a shared experience and a time for reflection. We've made these 2 hours to be together, to learn from each other. And what I've learned has been very transformative And people really enjoy the opportunity to speak from experience, by the way, which is one of the many rules necessary to be part of this experience. Because what happens is, a lot of people want to speak thinking that they know or want to give somebody advice if someone has something that they want to put on the table or share. And the rule for me always is, if you have not experienced something that is being shared, please do not put in your 2 cents. We are not asking for advice. However, if you have in fact experienced something similar, that you can say, this is what I did when this so-and-so happened, right, in my life. I'm just sharing it with you so that maybe it'll help you, and maybe it'll help you move forward or see it with new eyes. That to me is very important as a leader, to keep that rule, if you will, in place.
That's interesting. In another context, it was a brain training program, and when you gave feedback, they were really careful for us not to sound. There was a very specific way to respond so you didn't sound parental. And I think sometimes as women, we're so used to being solution finders, right? The helpers, the nurturers, the givers, that we do sometimes feel the pressure to come up with, quote, the answer. And so there's something powerful to the idea of pulling back and not needing to have an answer, but to share life.
Right. And that's the word. Part of this community is about sharing life. It's about sharing your experiences. And it's not about the drama, the judgment, or the advice. Mm-hmm. And you're right. It's really how you present it. And so people don't feel that they're defensive or that they're being judged or that they can't just be themselves and be 100% honest and raw. Because let me tell you, over these 20 plus years, there's been a lot of raw. Mm-hmm. And, what's beautiful about this group is that they have learned how to, I can't even think of the word, just by sharing and being together. And by the way, I've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different people. They come and go, depending on where they are in their lives, where they either come for 6 months, stay for the year, come back 3 years later. It's a moving target. But the collective, if you will, the community of these wonderful women have created such a love for each other, such a support system. They've connected in ways that they would have never connected with other females, if you will, because of, the awareness level is so different, the sensitivity. We're also empathetic, if you will, towards whatever's going on for them. And we talk about everything. And that's really, that was the impetus of the Work-Life Balance Institute for Women. When 5 years into this work and this group that I was doing, this was now 1999 when I started the Work-Life Balance Institute, I realized that a magazine or something on a bigger level is what needed to be put out there, because a lot of our topics were work and life balance, families, love affairs, husbands, children, jobs, self-care. When you think about, how we just don't do that, and the guilt behind that, and, being selfish versus selfless, and that whole conversation. So the conversations were always incredibly deep. And I tell you, by 9 o'clock, it was hard for us to separate. And yet the energy of the room after we've meditated for 30 minutes was so amazing. And the hugs that we were able to give each other, which we miss dearly. We had a meeting just last Tuesday where it was over the telephone. And it was just so different and so disconnected, even though people were still sharing. Of course, it was nothing like being together energetically in the room, right?
I want to make a comment about energy while we're on the topic. You talked about the impact of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And I think people get a little tripped up on the word energy. But if you think about it, we all put off some kind of a vibe, right? You get around certain people and you just kind of know whether or not you're comfortable with them or not comfortable with them. So I think there's something to be said about when you talk about the energy of the room as a leader, when you're getting together with groups of women, that energy is managed, because we do come together from wherever we've been with whatever we've experienced with us, almost like clothing, right?
Right.
We're wearing those emotions, we're wearing those experiences. And when it comes to community and connection as women, I think there's a wisdom to acknowledging where we're at and opening up to where that other people may have had a similar day, and managing the energy kind of in a global sense as well.
Everything, as you know, is energy. You walk into a room, as you say, you can feel the energy. You could cut it with a knife if there was an argument, or if somebody's angry, or if somebody's happy. And so we wake up either with energy or without energy. You're either tired or you're excited or motivated to. And so incoming and outgoing energy is very important. And I think it's something that we all have, and we just have to keep it going. We could read the energy after a while, if you will, in the room. And it's a muscle that you build, obviously, like meditation. I always say meditation is like a muscle that you build.
Knowing the energy of the people you allow in your circle.
Yes.
Is very important.
Well, that's exactly where I was going. I unfortunately had to tell a couple of people not to come back, because unfortunately they did not understand the purpose or the concept of what we were creating and how to respond and what to do and all the things that went with it, and made people incredibly uncomfortable. And so when you know that that's related to one individual or two or whatever, you've got to cut it out. And so yes, energetically, they're one person when you are coaching them, or one person when you're counseling them, but now you're in a group setting and they're not necessarily the same person, even though the invitation was given to them. So it's sad, because I'm the one that has to, make those decisions, but everybody felt it, everybody knew it, and they knew that I had to bite the bullet. So yeah, inviting the right people, and there is no right or wrong, that everybody belongs there. But it's just a matter of, it's a personality thing too, right? And knowing that you're going to be authentic, right? That you're going to speak from a place of truth, that you're not going to be judgmental, that you're going to try and inspire others, that we're going to collaborate and ignite possibilities. And our purpose, our only purpose in this beautiful community and circle of women, is to enrich each other and our experiences and learning from each other. Because now at the age that we're at, have lived a lot and have experienced a lot. So in that collective, we have a powerful opportunity to make an impact on each other. So once you are connected with like-minded women, that can happen. It's almost like a mastermind. I'm sure you've heard of masterminds, but this is from a totally different level. And believe it or not, it's much more metaphysical and spiritual from where I'm coming from. I do a lot of assignments where they have an opportunity to sit and think about. We just recently did, before all this coronavirus stuff showed up, to do a life list, kind of like a bucket list, to sit down and, before you turn 100, what are the things that you are not going to regret not having done? So one side of the page has the 100 items in your bucket list, and then the right-hand side says completed. And you'd be amazed how many individuals have come back to me over the last couple of months, because we started this in January or February, to tell me what has come up for them and how it's changed how they see what's left in their life. Some of us have 20 years left. Some of us have 30 years left. And in that time, what are you going to accomplish? What do you want to get to? Is this the job that you really want to do? Do you want to travel the world? Do you want to work for a nonprofit? What do you need to do to change your life? And what are you waiting for?
That is such a good question. What are you waiting for? When we talk about, community and connection, it really is important to have people around you that encourage you to pursue that list. To be completely honest, Susie, there are people that I love and I love them dearly, but they're not necessarily the people I'm going to go to with my life list, with my dreams. In other words, they're not the person that will understand. And
exactly,
their world is different than mine. In my mind, it feels smaller.
Yes.
But that's the world that they're happy with. So for me specifically, being the kind of person that might think a little bigger, like always kind of thinking like possibility, I have my flaws, but one of the things is I tend to think beyond, and finding people that can be on that wavelength with you to feed that energy so that you have the keeps you motivated to continue, right?
Right. I was going to say it motivates you. It gives you optimism. It pushes you forward. And that's what this group does for each other, where we're like accountable to each other. So every time we meet, people will ask each other, so tell me, okay, you said you wanted to skydive. Okay, I'm just giving you, but believe it or not, that did happen. Okay, so we ask each other questions, not to put you on the spot, but really to see, are you really serious? Is this something you really want to do? And if in fact you do, all right, what's the date that you're thinking about making that happen? Because all you have to do is go set up an appointment. And so, we're all laughing and giggling and obviously uncomfortable with it because it's like, oh my God, I'm really on the spot now. But the truth is, no, we're actually helping you move forward to say, I really want this, but thank you for pushing me, right? You're not putting me on the spot. You're literally motivating me to make it happen. So it's always been kind of cute where people don't feel threatened by the way we come across. They hear love. They hear possibility. They hear, I'm here for you. I agree. Let's do it. Maybe I want to do that with you. So, it's really, it's amazing what you see in that flow. Once you're in that flow, in that energetic flow, it just changes the possibilities. I know I keep saying the same thing over and over, but the truth is what keeps coming up on a regular basis is how to get in touch with who we are as women, how we can grow, how we can give to our family, and how we can stay grounded and continue to give ourselves self-care. Because that, for whatever reason over the years, always seems to be the hardest thing for women to do. And we just spent 4 months discussing, by the way, because sometimes we have books, and of course my book was one of the books that we had. But before that, we had 4 months of The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, a little tiny thin book that covers 4 agreements that if you could live by, it would change everything about you, right? And I said to everybody, and we had deep conversations about each one of those agreements. And the biggest disagreement or conversation, not disagreement, the biggest agreement or scenario was around not taking things personally. And it's amazing what comes up when people say, "Oh, I don't take anything personally. I don't get affected by that." And I immediately say to everyone in the room, because sometimes we think we're very spiritually, very high and spiritual and up, what's the word? I'm past that. I've already gotten, I've read the book, I've done the work, blah, 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 right? So I say, okay, really? Let's talk about that. So what happens is that couple of weeks we talk about not taking things personally. They come back and they say, okay, so I really want to talk about this topic. Why? Because you wouldn't believe what happened to me since I said I wasn't going to, that I didn't take things personally. And I've been so upset and I've been so angry and all this stuff has started coming at me. And I said, that's how it works. when you say you're not taking things personally, all of a sudden, all these people, places, and things show up to show you or teach you that maybe you are, and you haven't really noticed it, and you think you're clear of that. But the fact of the matter is, that's part of the ongoing process, right? The lesson. And so that was a very, very powerful 4 months of discussing the 4 agreements, because we just had one conversation over another, and different exercises and homework, and so many different lists that came up. So, it was be impeccable with your word. What does that mean, right? Speak with integrity. I went to Switzerland in the early 2000s. They separated the Americans from the rest of the Europeans in this group. There must have been, 800 people there in this conference that we went to. We were in St. Moritz, a tiny little town. And they sat us, the Americans, down, and they said, by the way, in Switzerland, we say what we do, do what we say. We say what we do, and we do what we say. Now, if you go shopping to a store to buy a dress, and you say to the lady in the dress shop, "Oh, I love this dress. I love this dress. I'll be back for it." She will stay open until you return, because she believed in the power of your word. And so being impeccable with your word was a huge aha moment for folks, because most of us speak very flippantly with our words. And that was a really interesting conversation and learning experience from a lot of the people in the group. And we also talked about gossip, because that's part of being impeccable with your word, and how gossip is so negative, and it should not be something that we should feed. And literally, if people are gossiping, walk away. And so to us, the conversation was always being impeccable with your word is about truth and love and staying in that space. And also being impeccable with your word, it was also about being honest and truthful with yourself, because unfortunately what happens is we have 60,000 thoughts every day. 90% of that are all negative towards ourselves. Okay, we beat ourselves up over and over and over and over. And so we had to learn how to stop that monkey mind and that negativity, right? And that avoiding speaking against yourself. Mm. And when I took Silva Mind Control in the early 80s, one of the things we learned to say was cancel clear when a negative thought came up, because it's just the way we communicate. And so one of the things they taught us was when we say, "Oh, I'm dying to go to this concert," and I would literally say, "No, you're not dying. You're living to go." Think about the word. Words have power, and you need to really, change and shift how you speak, how you think, and what you put out in the universe. So, and of course about yourself, I feel fat, I'm not pretty, I'm not smart enough. It goes on and on. And as women, boy, do we beat ourselves up with that. So that was a huge learning on the 4 agreements about being impeccable with your word. And you can talk about that one sentence 4 months on end, by the way.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about the power of what we say. I would have to agree that what we tolerate from ourselves, from our words, really sets the tone for how we show up in our relationships and everything else. Like it's the biggest struggle I think all of us have, is really what happens between our own ears and the
Absolutely.
language, right? The language that we use. And some of it's been given to us from maybe childhood. Some of it has been kind of gathered like barnacles on our spirit over the years, right?
Oh, we have to scrape them off.
Yes, we do have to scrape them off. And back to the circle and the community is allowing people in your life who can identify the barnacles with you and help you do the work of sloughing them off. I think that is a really important thing.
That's a beautiful metaphor, and it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. They are there to support you, to not be judgmental, to love you, to see who you are, and to help you move forward. And, like I say, that's why I took the 4 agreements, and made it a very powerful teaching for all those 4 months, because, think about what they are. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions, and always do your best. So, and be impeccable with your word was the first one. Don't take anything personally. Again, we talked about that earlier, but when you think about that, how many of us live our lives assuming, right? Assuming that it's all about us, when in fact it has nothing to do with us or what's going on. It's about somebody else's life. And we can't help but take it personally, because we're offended, we're upset, we're disappointed, we're this, we're that. It's so crazy. And when we hear it from other people, and we can then describe it and talk about it from a, again, non-judgmental place, it's amazing what we see ourselves not being the victim any longer. And we're able to move forward, and we can stop the suffering of taking things personally. I just had this conversation with somebody I was coaching a couple of days ago. She was suffering from a huge sinus infection. And the first thing I said to her was, what's irritating you? Because there is a cause and effect, and an emotional and a physical connection, right? Mm-hmm. And she said, how did you know? I said, well, you told me you had a sinus infection. And she says, yeah, my office is driving me crazy. I'm having a problem with the manager of the office. I said, okay, so what are you taking for granted? What are you assuming? And what are you taking personally? She goes, Susie, what are you, psychic? But the fact of the matter is, this is what it's all about. And she said, you're right. I've been taking a lot of stuff personally, and I've been very frustrated and very angry and very irritated. So the minute she stopped that, it's amazing how she was able to see it differently.
So what are you assuming? What are you taking for granted? And what are you taking personally? Those are hard questions. They're going to poke a little, huh?
Yeah. So, those are aha moments that we get to learn from each other, and to deal with our daily life. It comes up. It takes courage to ask yourself these questions and really get to the answers, because in the end, especially the one about assumptions, because, we walk around just assuming all sorts of stuff about people, places, and things, right? And when people have read my book, they've said to me, oh my God, I thought you had like a perfect life. From the outside, you look like everything is hunky-dory and Peter Pan. And then I read your book. I had no idea. I said, well, that's what making assumptions about somebody is, because I drive a nice car, or I'm wearing bracelets or whatever, again. So we have to really pay attention to the assumptions that we're making about others, and realize that it will stop a lot of sadness and drama, right? And expectations, right? Because we do expect. I always say, if you never expect anything, you'll never be disappointed. Think about that. That's big.
You talked about suffering and stopping the suffering. And you also talked about expectations. So when we think about what we're assuming, what we're taking for granted, what we're taking personally, another question is, what are your unmet expectations? Because I think as women, as humans, but we're talking to women today, our expectations, those can really cause us a lot of difficulty.
A lot of pain.
A lot of suffering and pain, yeah.
A lot of pain, a lot of suffering. And it's just something that we have to find the courage to look at and realize that it doesn't have to be that way if you realize what it really truly is, and come from a place of knowing and not the misunderstanding of what you think it is, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes things just are, and it has absolutely nothing to do with you. Yet you are assuming, back to assumptions, that it happened because of this and this and that and this and them and she and he, and 99% of the time this has nothing to do with you. But meanwhile, you've created this drama going on in your head. And that's where the pain starts.
Yeah.
I didn't get that phone call. Oh, look, I sent her a text and then she didn't reply. And this happened and that. I mean, what? Really? So when you start really analyzing things, realizing you need to let go, step back and look at things differently. It's not negative or positive. It just is. And then, just look at life with different eyes, really a whole different perspective. It'll change how you live your life each and every day, as opposed to in that drama and in that gossip and in that negativity and in that fear, because it's all connected. It's all connected. He didn't come home last night. There must be a reason. Maybe he's got a girlfriend. I mean, it can just go on and on. These are all assumptions we're making. And, it just goes, we can sit here for hours talking about what people assume to be. And then when they really sit down and look at it and realize, look at what I've done to myself with aggravation, because it is physical and it is mental, it is emotional, and it does affect our spirit. And so all of these things, create this acid indigestion and heartburn, and guess where cancer comes from, and all of this stuff in time builds up. And we have to learn how to just manage that and realize the truth. And it takes work. And this is something we have done over the last 20 plus years in this wisdom circle, where I say to you, the profound aha moments and the gifts that we've all given each other with, the opportunity for people to share their truth, and then for us to speak it and for them to see the truth. And then they go, wow, I had no idea what I was doing, and what was replaying in my mind and how it was going on over and over and over. And it's been beyond anything I've ever expected, Gina.
What's interesting, I think, as I'm listening to you talk about, a group of women being allowed to be honest about themselves. And one of the things that I've experienced is when someone is sharing an experience, if it is reflective in my life, if it's like a mirror in my life, and I personally have not yet crossed that bridge, faced that reality, it can be painful, and we can, quote, get offended or find ourselves pulling away when it's really that person's just sharing their life. They're not intending to do anything to you. But if it reflects in our life somewhere, if it pokes in a painful place, the temptation can be to pull back or to be offended or to react, and I think one of the things that comes up for me and what I do in my coaching practice is when I see that kind of a trigger. That's what we would call it, right?
It is a trigger, yeah, of course.
You call that trigger and you stop and you hold a space for that trigger, because you have to kind of do a little bit of reverse engineering. Somebody could say, something that to them is just a statement. There's not a lot of emotional charge to the statement for them, but it's a mirror to you. And all of a sudden there's this emotion that charges that experience. So when we're in connection and community with women, sometimes that's going to happen.
It has happened. It has happened.
Right? We're going to feel emotional charge that the other person, remember you're saying that things happen and it's not happening to us. It's happening around us. And if we don't assume that it's an attack, we can step back and recognize, why am I so emotionally charged over this? And that's the beauty of community, is we are mirrors for each other. And the healthier the community is and the judgment is low, those mirrors that hurt, if you will, we can hold a space for each other. And
that mirror is a reflection of the entire community. No doubt about it. And we are, and I think that's a beautifully put, because the mirror concept of we come in not knowing how we are, we are a product of all of the 5 people that we are part of. Here we are the 25 people that we are part of, and how we have mirrored each other in one form or another, depending on what's happened to us in our lives at different times of our lives, and how we can reflect and learn from and experience. And if we are charged, if there is a charge still affecting us, How important is that to now look at it and say, why am I feeling upset? Why am I feeling angry? What is it that you've touched within me that I haven't dealt with? And we do talk about those things, and it's very, very powerful. So thank you. It becomes a coaching slash counseling session without it being, because I can't control the fact that that's what I am doing. But it's for most of us in the group, it's about listening, and it's also sharing and being open and connecting with each other to such a level that I wish we could create a lot of more of these, and that people and women that are listening to this show right now, if they can find 5 people that they can have this kind of a conversation with and come up with some topics and some quotes and, just start the process slowly, because you have to find common ground and trust and confidentiality. All of that is part of the rules. And what you're going to talk about, how often you're going to meet, when you're going to meet, where you're going to meet. It's not at somebody's home, and it's not wine and cheese. This is a serious meeting where people come to talk and to connect. It's not everybody bring a bottle of wine and, we're going to just sit in the patio. It's not that kind of a meeting. And I want people to understand that this is a serious takeaway. When you leave there, you have walked away with a process and an experience, and sometimes answers that you didn't expect to receive, and messages from others that you didn't even know that they were going to be there to talk about today. So it's really powerful. So I hope that women connect and see the possibility for themselves and start small, and then before you know it, people will say, tell me what you're doing. I love that. I want to be part of it. How can I be part of it? And by the way, create a charge and a dollar amount that you want to charge people. Meet 2 times a month. Make it so that after, now in this experience, obviously, who knows, but it can happen, and it will happen again, where we're all going to be together holding hands. I call this my kumbaya group, because I play music. Sometimes I'll play the song Hero, because I see each other as a hero, from Mariah Carey. Another song I play is by Bill Withers. Lean on Me is the name of it. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I will help you carry on. And I'm telling you, we're all crying when we finish hearing it, because we're there for each other, to lean on each other, to support each other. And the message is so powerful. And because I'm going to lean on you when I need help. So lean on me now that you need help. So it's beautiful. I sometimes will play You Are the Wind Beneath My Wings. Very inspirational, powerful songs. One of my other songs that I love is by Katy Perry, Fireworks. Again, we have a positive, exciting, energetic song that talks about, and I give everybody the lyrics. So they read the lyrics and they see the power of the song, because baby, you are a firework. And, and it just explodes, and we're laughing and we're dancing and we're hugging. And so, there's a lot of pieces to this. It's not just come in and talk. There's a lot of components that I have explored over the years to facilitate it and to break the ice. And the angel cards, I will end with. The angel cards are what people then at the end, after we've done all of this and all the conversation and whatever's come up and what we've written down on our journal, we pick up our angel card, and each person gets to read what their angel card says and how that now impacts them, and how they of course leave after this angel card is read. And it's amazing how the message on the angel card is exactly what they just needed or talked about. I mean, it's like there are no accidents. Here they are. And let's say one angel card is peace or love or connection or support or abundance when the person had just lost their job, or, and it's powerful. So the messages that comes through those angel cards also are wonderful. So that's another aspect of that community getting together and being one. And they love it, and I love it.
As we talk about community, something that is coming up for me is that there may be some a learning curve to how to choose the women that are right for that kind of intimacy, that kind of vulnerability, because not everyone we care about, like I said earlier, is the right fit for something like that. If we're on a progressive movement in our life, not everyone is on a progressive movement. They're not wanting to go there. They're not needing or wanting to have that same thing. So there is a bit of a process involved to find women that are on the same kind of level of thinking, not judging like other people aren't on your level. I don't mean it that way, but we can't assume that the people that we care about are going to understand that or
That's
going
true.
to even want to be a part of it. There is a journey when we grow where some people don't go with us. Somebody once said, some people can't go with you there. They can't breathe at that altitude. They're not
And you will,
acclimated.
and when you are on a spiritual path, by the way, you will lose a lot of friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said that for years. And, unfortunately, you will be shedding some friends, some family members, whoever it is that don't belong and want to join, but they don't belong. And you know that more than anybody when you're creating it. But, what I've discovered is that lots of people are lonely. Lots of people are frightened. Lots of people want to be part of or get rid of the surface level conversations that I call cocktail talk, right? They want to dig deeper. They want to be more mindful. They want to achieve different relationships. They really want to accelerate their highest potential. And that's how they can do it. And it's only with tools and other women, unfortunately or fortunately, I am a very good connector of people, and I can kind of pick up who fits and who doesn't fit. And that's really is going to have to be probably the first tool that a person who wants to create this kind of community circle is that self-awareness and the awareness of connecting with others. And once you do that, then you can start building that community and turning it into your own tribe.
Yeah, the wisdom in who fits that circle. Not that they're bad or wrong, but just if you want to move forward, it's easier to move forward if everyone is in agreement with the path that it's going to take to get there.
So, and I can tell you that even I've had over the years, lots of folks who were part of the group and discovered over the years in time, they didn't belong in the group. Even though they came in, they were participating, they were doing everything. And then at some point in time, when something came up for them, as you would say, touched a button, a big button, they were out of there. And you know what? That's where they need to be. And it's okay without judgment to let them go, wish them well, and somebody else will fill that spot. And that's what happens. It just creates an opening for someone else.
Letting the triggered be if they want to go. I think not feeling the need to repair, fix, correct.
No.
Everyone's journey needs to be.
And you still love them just as well, and you still feel, as wonderful as they were and the time that you spent together. And you trust that everything had been said prior to the fact that they left has been kept in their heart confidentially, and that's all there is to it. And all you can do is choose wisely. I guess that would be a term to use. Choose wisely. Find the right individuals from the get-go. And, once you describe it to somebody, I would say write it down, what you think your group dynamics need to be, when you're meeting, how often, what is your confidentiality agreement that you're going to have people write? Are you open to discovering and connecting with your untapped potential and getting rid of surface level friendships? Do you want to be part of this? And do you want to talk about metaphysical topics? Are you prepared to read metaphysical books? Do you feel disconnected? These are all questions you'll ask the people that you're going to invite. Some people will say, nah, that's not for me. I go to church. I've got a ladies group. I go to my, golf group. I do whatever. And that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll know the people
Mm-hmm.
immediately will say, I'm with you. I'm there. And those are the ones you got to scoop up.
So now that we're rounding up our hour, if someone is looking for community and connection as a woman, what 3 things can you tell them to help them to identify the right places? How can they start this journey of that higher level community and connection?
Okay, well, I know there will be lots of women in your community, in your listening audience, that would like to create a community. And like I said earlier, is to think about 5 people who that you could enjoy, and you have unshakable faith that they want to be part of your journey, unshakable faith that you could trust them, unshakable faith that they are like-minded in whatever it is that you are whatever direction you're trying to get to, and that they will be there to support you and open to the experience of meeting biweekly, spending money towards that with an energetic financial exchange, and being open to championing each other, supporting and championing each other, empowering each other. And obviously, whoever's creating this community will have to do a little work with bringing up some really cool quotes or a book or something that will, in fact, start the conversation. And if meditation is something that's of interest to them as part of the group, then, there's a million apps to download, or you could go to my website, which I have gifted everyone in the world 2 meditations that I was very lucky to channel with Stephen Halpern, and they could go to www.gettingtoforgiveness.com/meditation. So, and now more than ever, I think it's something that people need to get to, just because everybody has so much anxiety and stress and fear over the future. So one of the meditations is meditations for healing stress, and the other one is meditations for a peaceful heart. So there are many ways to just show up and create a step-by-step process for themselves. There are no real rules other than confidentiality, mm-hmm. and seriously creating the rules of only speak from experience, and where we're meeting and how often and what it's going to cost. Start with that, and then honestly, it'll fall into place, because what you do is you'll start telling people, I've got this group. It's amazing. This is what we're doing. Would you like to participate? And then you add another person and another person. And before you know it, you've got 10, 12, 20 people who realize how powerful this group of women are, that are there to be their right hand, their shadow, their everything, their accelerator, right? To help them accelerate and grow and be all that they can be.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Susie, for sharing your passion for helping women build community and connection, and for sharing your journey and the wisdom that you've gained along the way. I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Thank you so much, Gina. I'm going to leave you with embrace a new way of being by creating a community and building a community of women and forming your own tribe.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. And today I've been talking with Susie Levan. She's the author of Getting to Forgiveness, What a Near-Death Experience Can Teach Us About Loss, Resilience, and Love. She's a spiritual warrior and a coach. And if you head on over to www.feminineroadmap.com/episode 160, I will have links to get to Susie, those meditations that she mentioned, her book. So it will be very easy for you to connect with her. While you're there, please leave your name and email address. Subscribe to my tribe. I do not spam, I promise. I'm actually not as committed to weekly emails as I should be, but I do send out things as they are put on my heart, and I would love to share that with you. As always, thank you for being a part of this community. Thank you for taking the time to grab a cup of something wonderful and listen to these conversations. I trust that they are changing your life and that you're sharing them with other women so that their lives can be impacted as well. It's so important that we work together in community to build up, to encourage, to hold a safe space for each other. The world can be a very hostile place, and we need each other. We need to show up as our best selves, and it takes a village, my friends, to build that kind of love and connection. I thank you so much for listening in today. We look forward to sharing more powerful conversations with you in the weeks to come. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.